Okay, guys, today we want to really engage everybody. I think it's been just a great conference, and I think, as we're having this discussion on the ecosystem, I think one thing that we could all agree is if you look at the Bulgarian ecosystem, how it's developed over the last 5 or 10 years, the progress that is made is simply remarkable. And I think it's really, the talent has always been there, but it's really a lot of different people working together on a shared vision of what we could do. And the idea of this panel discussion today is not to discuss what we have done, but to discuss where we're going to go going forward. And we have just a great panel of 4 of the major players in developing the ecosystem. And I guess today we're going to kind of break this up into 2. We want to do the first part of this panel to really kind of just do an assessment of where we are. We know that things are not perfect. There's still quite a few problems that we have to address. But more important is, where are we going to go? And I think the Bulgarian startup ecosystem is very much like a startup itself. And I think every great startup has to have a big vision. And I think everyone would agree our shared vision is not just to have a good ecosystem, but to have the best ecosystem in the world. So I want to just more or less first assess or ask the panelists to introduce themselves, but also I want you to start thinking about, what are some of the big ideas? What are some of the things that we could do together to help improve the system? And maybe we could start with you, Max, and we'll just maybe introduce yourself and then just kind of hit on some of the main topics. What do you think are the main problems and issues these days?
Hi everyone, my name is Max. For those of you who don't know me, I was just telling today to a couple of people that I originally got to Bulgaria because I got on a wrong flight a long time ago. I was planning to go somewhere else, but I came, liked it very much, and then came back again and stayed. My story is, I'm very, I rolled into entrepreneurship without really wanting it. I'm a lawyer by training, also sort of by mistake set up an online legal services company in the Netherlands, which we built, exited. Sounds much cooler than it is in reality, actually. And I came to Bulgaria with the idea to set up a new startup, but then life happened. I met guys like Danny. I was in the founding team of 11, and since last year I'm working on a new funding vehicle, a funding company. Basically, one thing that I wanted to say, on the substance. I just looked up before we got on stage what the word ecosystem means. An ecosystem is a system of interconnected parts. And then that's probably one of the things that I'm not fully sure yet whether in Bulgaria we do have an ecosystem. We definitely do have a very good community. And it's a community that's growing, but I think in order to have it become an ecosystem, we still need to do a lot of work. And that's maybe something we'll be able to discuss in this half an hour.
Okay, thanks, Max. I'm Daniel. I'm a founding partner at 11. We invest in startups in Bulgaria and across Central Eastern Europe. We have already 70 startups invested. And I've been involved with the tech community and the ecosystem since 2000. So I have a pretty good view of what happened, and it's amazing what is happening since then. And Max is very right about, one of the signs of that the startup ecosystem is maturing is actually attracting people like Max, going around the world and actually coming to Sofia and staying here. But also about the interconnected parts is that if you look at the ecosystem like in 2000 and 2005, and you remember it was most of the founders were in very isolated status. They didn't have access to mentors, they didn't have access to investors. It was very difficult to go to big corporations. And now in 2014, you see all these parts being together in this conference. You see the investors, the mentors, all the peers around founders, and also the corporates. So it's a great achievement.
Okay, maybe we could go down with Peter.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, everybody. I'm Peter from Started Smart. I'm president and co-founder. So Started Smart was founded before 5 years, and our main goal is to inspire and educate young people to start their own successful companies. So how we do it, we have monthly inspirational events. just to inspire the young people with ideas to start working on that. Also, we found a huge gap between the people with ideas and the level that they need to take investment. So that's why we have pre-accelerator program. We finished season 1, and also we opened application window for season 2. The main thing in our pre-accelerator program is that it's a training and mentorship program for 10 weeks. It's like an accelerator without funding and without taking equity. So we are in very good relations with our accelerators in Bulgaria. And also, we support opening local organizations like Start Smart in different towns in Bulgaria, like Rus and Burgas, because we know that there is a lot of talent in Bulgaria, and they need just a good environment to open their potential and to make their ideas happen.
Maybe Stani?
Hi there, my name is Stani Milev. I'm with the Startup Foundation, which we are actually the first NGO in Bulgaria to start working on the startup ecosystem. It was, I don't know, like 6-7 years ago. What we do, we hold the main startup event, which is the Startup Conference each year. We also have a Startup Academy. We try to train people how to design and engineer their startups. We also do startup weekends, which are the global events for speed starting up, validating your idea and project. And of course, whatever we think of, we try to open the eyes to Bulgarian people that there is this opportunity in their lives not to become good employees, but to start up something, change their lives, change the lives to the others, probably change the world. So yeah, that's what we are trying to do.
So what are the main issues? Like what are the problems now that we face?
As the ecosystem, you're saying?
Well, I view the whole thing as the ecosystem, because if the goal is to develop a system where we're able to really build multi-billion-dollar companies. So there's many things involved. How do we get there? What are the problems, and what do we need to do to address those problems?
I mean, one of the things, so if you look at building technological ventures, right? One of the things that in Bulgaria we're very, very good in, we have a lot of technical talent. We have, or at least we used to have, very good education in Bulgaria. There is a lot of work, a lot of technologies being built in Bulgaria, but by companies that are not Bulgarian. If look at the experience that we've all had, at least Danny and I had, and Launchup, for instance, has with investing in locally homegrown startups, is the problem with market skills. So this is basically the big problem. We have people that can come up with good ideas, because the world is very interconnected. You have a lot of, you can see what kind of stuff works in the world. So people generally have good ideas. Execution is pretty good usually as well. But if you don't have a local market, there is no place to actually grow business development and product development skills. So this is something that's not happening in Bulgaria yet. And it's very sad sometimes to see really cool projects done by very ambitious people that are very smart, and they still fail to get to critical mass because there is simply no understanding locally about how these things happen in the world. So I think that once we start fixing that, and for this, for instance, a thing like DigitalK, a place where we can come together and learn from some of the best people in the industry, this is crucial. It has to happen more and more. People have to communicate more, and then that will hopefully start happening.
Daniel?
I mean, to a certain degree, I would agree with Max. But if you look in relative terms, like if you look like for the last 15 years, what has changed is that actually the founders are much more mature, much wiser, and actually in terms of skills, they have improved significantly. So. Yes, that's true that it's probably you will find much more experienced people in more mature ecosystems like in the States or Israel or the UK. But actually the rate of improvement is significant. So for me it's very positive. What I think is that should be improving constantly, because you already have this movement forward with the community growing and more people getting involved in the community. and actually this local community integrating with our other networks. So this should be going forward and getting more integrated. So this is the way you learn, through being exposed to other ecosystems. So I think this will naturally appear, because even today we have great founders that actually are building great products, and they already relocate in the US or in the UK or elsewhere and building good companies. So now it's relatively thin, so I would say the human fabric is relatively thin, but it's already there. So we should just continue working on that day by day.
What I was really impressed with 11, having worked as a mentor, is there's an international element to this. There are entrepreneurs coming to Bulgaria, partnering with Bulgarian IT specialists. They have a vision for their own market and developing solutions. So I think that's some great examples for what you guys are doing.
We try to bring more people. And Marvin is a mentor at 11, and we try to bring more and more people there, so that you have to integrate yourself. I mean, a very good example is Israel. We constantly talk with Vasil from Telerik, is that we would like to make Bulgaria like what is Israel today. And actually, if you look at Bulgaria today with all the Jeremy instruments, it's something similar started in Israel like 15 years ago.
Right.
So, and also there you don't have a local market. And in my view, I find the lack of local markets, of course it's got the challenges that you cannot sell there, but it's also it's a great advantage that from the first day you want to make a business, it doesn't matter which is the field, tech or not tech, you always look for internationalization of your product, which is very healthy.
That's one of the interesting things, or the benefits. I agree with you, is the size of the Bulgarian market, it really means if you could do well in Bulgaria, you could really develop it anywhere. So it's really a great platform for starting a company. Peter, what are some of the issues you think that are holding back the system? And by the system, I mean the ability to develop great companies here.
So from our point of view, because we are in the very beginning, something which is a big need or pain in our ecosystem is the lack of business development skills and management skills, how to make your startup fast and cheap, to prove your concept, and after that to think about optimization and scaling. Because as you know, our educational system could not provide high quality innovative methodologies to start a business, like a lean methodology. So this is one of the main issues, I think. Also, we found that our mindset here in Bulgaria is that we have some problems with negotiations and with sales, because we are more conservative to save our money, to not take any risks. But we saw in the previous quote from Seth Godin, it's the most dangerous thing to not taking risks.
Yeah. Stani.
I would like to point a few things. First, on our everyday interaction with wannabe startup entrepreneurs, as we meet them in the academy or in the startup weekend, I would totally agree we have great technical potential. I think, though, that we need to be a little bit bolder. As Peter said, we need to take more risks, to be more brave, to plan bigger. Because right now it's really about making the ends meet or surviving, not trying to get it out there and reach out for all the opportunities that the world has got. That's from one point. And from another point, I think that as you started the conversation, we want to build the best ecosystem. If I can slightly tweak that and say that we actually want to build a unique ecosystem, because obviously we are not going to be able to build a best ecosystem in Bulgaria with our resources. But if we manage to find right now in the next few years what is by definition unique for Bulgarian ecosystem, what's our value proposition for the world, what is uniquely just like Israel does, just like Silicon Valley does, then I think that we can take this for the next step towards.
Stani, when I say the best ecosystem, I don't mean today. I mean, you've got to look out. Like, no one's mentioned access to capital.
We have it.
Well, I mean, compared to you know, to some more developed ecosystems, the access capital is minuscule. I think EIF has played a great role in helping stimulate things, but still, there's still lots of companies that need additional capital that are.
If you look for investment locally, yes, but like, I have
Why would you?
2 friends who just went to Lyra in Czech Republic 2 months ago with their startup because they actually made a better offer than 11.
Okay.
So.
But that's exactly my point. They just left Bulgaria to start a company elsewhere.
Where is the borderline? I mean, what do you mean by access of funds? Like, if I'm going to do a startup, should I think like locally? Should I think European? Should I think worldwide? I mean, if I want to do it, to get the money.
That's actually a very interesting topic. I mean, I think Stani is very right in the sense that you know, capital is freely available. You know, we have free markets. Even if you look at the way capital is invested here, you know, you just mentioned it as a very good point that 11 launch a bunch of other investors actually invest in companies from the region. What is really important is to create a homegrown culture of smart money. One of the sort of alarming things that I've been noticing in the last maybe year or 2 years is that some tech entrepreneurs that become successful when they come from this region, they don't actually stay here. There are a number of startups that, for instance, originated even in Bulgaria, but also in some countries in the region like Slovenia, like Croatia, that once they become successful, they actually, you know, you go, for instance, to those countries and people say, oh, you know, we're really proud of company X because they're, let's say, a Croatian company or a Slovenian company. And you go like, yeah, well, that 2 of the founders are, but the company's actually in the US and no one really knows that it's a Slovenian Croatian company, and is it really? They usually don't, you know, sometimes don't even have an office. So creating a system, you know, apart from capital, creating a system where you retain those talents and make sure that, you know, they basically do whatever they do to grow their companies or to do the next project that they're doing, but that they stay connected to that ecosystem or community back home. And that is, you know, that is a very important step in actually creating real value, because otherwise with just money you just can't win it.
Well, let's maybe kind of, I mean, we've addressed the access to capital, we've addressed you know, sales and marketing skills. Maybe we should discuss any other issues we want to throw out there, and then we could just kind of brainstorm. I'd like to involve the audience and just get some ideas on, you know, how could we have more access to capital? You know, how could we kind of accelerate things? What should we be doing that we're not doing right now?
Well, there was one thing, if I could just step in, that Peter mentioned, which is actually very interesting. You know, he mentioned some with culture, right? So the question whether we have, you know, the culture. You know, Danny made this very flattering comparison with Israel. But you know, like my personal experience is that every time that I go to Israel and come back to Bulgaria, is that, you know, Bulgaria is sort of a reverse Israel. We actually don't have any of the problems that Israel has. We actually have all the resources that Israel doesn't have, but still we don't manage to hustle in the very same way. So, and I think that one of the problems that we need to get over if we really want to become globally competitive is to step up our game in terms of actually wanting to, you know, wanting to achieve stuff, wanting to win. You know, in this region, these are not natural qualities. You know, there is a big history of distrust in this society. There is definitely, you know, something that I think even the political scientists nowadays call post-communist confusion. You know, whatever it is, it's globally very, very unadapted. So I don't know, maybe this is, what do you guys think?
I mean, I think that, because, I mean, we always say about problems, I think that, I mean, this same discussion could be held in any other ecosystem, because when I go to Boston, the same discussion, they have it comparing themselves with the Silicon Valley. So you have to see things in relative terms, not always in absolute terms. And I think that what people need more is actually reinforcement and positive reinforcement. Because obviously there are things that probably somebody's doing better somewhere else, but I think people need more positive motivation rather something that they're used to, like the negative motivation. So it should be more confidence and more faith in what they're doing, and more people actually to be encouraged to start their own thing and to try it. And actually, this is the most important thing, because if you think about the bottom line is that still there is this culture which is abundant across Europe. It's about how you embrace failure, in a way.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just failing and starting again and realizing that it's not so bad, and here I am. I learned a lot, and
we should reinforce more confidence.
Actually, yeah, it's part of the whole process.
I think that's an ongoing process, and I can recall that one of the first conferences that we've been doing, we've been talking a lot about failure, and we've been inviting great people to talk about failure, and it was like rocket science for people. I'm still not sure that everybody grasped the idea of embracing failure, but I think that it's right now it's much more, let's say, much closer to people. But just to add to the culture thing, I think that we all need to continue working because we've been doing that for the last years. But we must continue work on the entrepreneurial culture at all. I'm talking about mindset. It's not just about people who want to start business, it's about people who want to work in startups. Because, yeah, we are these very few guys who love embrace startups, and we talk boldly and about changing the world, but then we got to go out there, hire people, work with them, work with institutions, and that's where we just hit in the wall of not understanding at all how entrepreneurial mindset works. So yeah, we need to cultivate. Yeah, we need to cultivate.
I don't agree because again, you have to look. I mean, if you have to look in a wider period of time, because I do remember what was the environment in 2000. So comparing 2000 with 2014, I grew up with guys from Teres, so I know how started and all that. So it's dramatic change.
Yeah, definitely. We are just talking about what
I can tell you just from my own personal experience, hiring people in Bulgaria today, like everyone wants to do a startup. So, and I've been in Bulgaria for like over 20 years. So I could tell you, the change is just mind-boggling, really. I'd like to maybe open it up for comments or questions that the audience have. Dragan? Maybe a microphone.
One thing that I didn't hear in this discussion at all is, I mean, I think about the Silicon Valley ecosystem, right? Interconnected parts. And 3/4 of successful things came out of actually research projects at the university. And nobody actually mentioned here. Yeah. Everybody wants a startup. Nobody has given me a single startup that's based on some sort of an academic project at the technical university or New Bulgarian University or anywhere, something. I mean, the guys at Google, right? They got their PhD thesis. There's actually a Bulgarian who was actually a classmate of them, and he knows the whole story. So the whole idea of clusters to create an ecosystem and be vertically integrated, we just absolutely are missing that. Like, we don't have a semiconductor company anymore. Yeah, well, we did have one in the 80s, which was a complete failure, but nobody does anything on silicon. We don't have a vertically integrated say a payment system, right? You look at all these e-commerce companies that are coming in Silicon Valley, they call them the PayPal mafia, right? Because they all came from PayPal. They know how transaction things work out. So can you maybe mention any kind of nascent feedback cluster mechanisms that are, I mean, you guys are in the market here. Any evidence of that actually happening? Because I think to me that's the ecosystem. That's the burgeoning part of an ecosystem is exactly this. And since actually during the socialist time when everything was kind of imposed, they decided, we're going to have a semiconductor company, and then we're going to have a PC company, and we're going to have software development and homegrown ERP. And they actually built an ecosystem that, just broke apart. Right.
That's a really good point, and I think that's very, very close to what Stani actually mentioned, when you say that you have to look at what you're good at, right? So for instance, let's be fair with ourselves. I think that science and research in Bulgaria have been dilapidated so much in the last years, or even if, I don't even know if it has ever existed on a proper, globally competitive level. That it's really hard to do exactly that, what you're saying. Bulgarian universities will not be competing with Stanford or MIT anytime soon on the same level. But you got to look at what you're good at. I remember very well, by the way, and referring to this question, kind of provoke everyone here. I think it was the first DigitalK conference in 2011 when U.S. Ambassador Warwick got on stage, and he gave this, do you remember that? He gave this very pumped speech when he said, like, why are people, why are Bulgarians always good in the wrong things? There are a couple of technology sectors, he said, where Bulgarians are market leaders, skimming ATMs, for instance. Why can't you use that know-how, that energy in peaceful purposes? And to be honest, that is something that maybe we should think of that. It's a bit provocative, I know, but let's be provocative, right? That's why we're at a conference here. If we have that know-how, why can't we actually use that? Just like the CIA, for instance, employs the best hackers and gives an impetus, brings out into the legal something that is deeply illegal. Does anyone here think that for instance, like, can we use engineers that set up skimming services to actually do something good?
Don't we do it? I mean, it's all the successful tech companies in Bulgaria. That's actually a result from our 80s and 90s efforts.
But actually, just to comment on that, I mean, about clusters, I mean, for example, Internet of Everything, with the definition now, the current definition, there is a lot of potential because there are a lot of industrial clusters and things happening in that field. And we've invested in like more than 10 companies coming from that field. And one of it, for just to give an example, is they're making a very cutting-edge drone technology. And actually, some of the guys are related to universities. So it's happening, but for sure it's very patchy. So, and looking over the last 10, 15 years, it was very difficult for this cooperation between business, companies, etc. And actually the business, if you look, I don't know whether somebody from Bascom is here, but they tried for many years to integrate the universities. And it's not very easy. It's not very easy, but it's changing in a positive way.
If I can also add something, as Max said, I don't see this happening any sooner. But what I think is that in the near future, this trend in the world is going to shift and change because that's how things are doing. So it will be in our best effort if we can spot where the things will go and we'll try to grab the next wave. I don't know if it will be the universities or we are going to start working with universities around the world, not the local ones. I don't know what it's going to be, but if we try to find this trend, that will be much better than we try to convert our own universities right now.
Just like to disagree with you guys on the universities because I've been looking at projects over the years and I think we're beginning to see some really commercially viable projects coming out of the university. I've seen something interesting in cybersecurity, some probiotics.
By the way, Peter should share with us because they're working in universities mainly, so he's probably the guy here on the stage who knows about universities.
When people are looking for money, they'll find you. I've seen a lot of that as an investor, just more and more activities. There's a lot of smart people in the universities we live in an open world, their access to information, they're really kind of figuring out what is the real opportunity here.
Yeah, but the question is, are these people affected by being in university or they're just like that?
Being in the university gives you the possibility to really dig deep into the research. And that research could be commercialized. So if you were working as an operation manager in a supermarket and you've got a PhD, you're not going to come up with that type of technology.
It's all very true. I mean, the thing that I'm always, kind of wary about and afraid about is that, we like to, compare ourselves with Israel or with, sometimes people say that Estonia is a good example. Sometimes people say, Singapore. Definitely, there's always that comparison to Silicon Valley, which shouldn't be made in most cases. The thing is, though, that these are all countries and societies where excellence is sort of key, a key benchmark that you have to live up to from your little age. This is something that I personally still kind of lack in not only in Bulgaria but basically in this whole region. People generally, there isn't. I mean, we're here really, smart people, and a lot of people in this room are really very focused on excellence. But generally, in society, that quality is still not omnipresent. It's not. it's not supported by families, by schools. There is still a lot of socially acceptable.
That's the problem. I think
slackness
the
in
problem
society.
starts with the families. I mean, if you're not raised to think.
And that's something you got to change, right? And that is something. I mean, it's really hard to believe how you can. I know I was asked this question the last time I was in the Bay Area. I had a meeting with a professor at Stanford, and he told me, "So Max, you're coming here to sell Bulgaria, right? Because you're raising money for a fund, and et cetera, et cetera. What is it that you guys are good at? Because you're not going to convince me." He told me that you guys can program cheaper, faster, and better than people, let's say, in China. So tell me, what are you actually good at? Because it was a really hard question to answer. And you.
I know.
Okay, let's take another couple of questions from the audience. Any questions or comments or, yeah.
Actually, it's a comment. I am a bit disappointed to hear such negativism from some of the speakers, because we are here, I think, to be really constructive about how we can make this ecosystem an ecosystem. And by only pinpointing the negative things about it, which we all know that they are there, and they are in every ecosystem, but if we unite ourselves only around the negative things and never allow ourselves to see the positives of what we have achieved so far and how much potential we have to go further, actually we will never go further. We will keep bickering and bickering about who gave money to whom and why, and who didn't give money to whom and why, and so on and so forth. So I would really like to ask that all of us here change the tone a little bit. And we're talking about our country, right? And we want our children to stay in our country. So if you want that, then this means that we have to be more positive about this rather than negative.
Can I share?
You guys, can you?
Can I share a story with you?
Okay.
Can you give the other people in the forum a little bit the time to speak? Thank you.
Sit down and shut up.
I'd like to just thank you for your.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
For the input, because that is, we're here to kind of develop something amazing for Bulgaria, and it's not compared to Israel or Silicon Valley. But maybe Peter or Danielle, any?
Thank you, Rene. I just want to set something which will cover your question. I think if we have more involvement from the companies, from the business side in Bulgaria, we could find more innovative products. Because if we talk about disruptive innovation, and it's not about casual startup ideas, which is around everybody's mind. So we need to search it in universities maybe, or in R&D centers in the business. And if we have more relationship with the companies and work together with the freedom of the entrepreneur, I think we could find more effective and innovative startups in Bulgaria.
I just want to add a quick question. Renate, I definitely agree with you. I think that pinpointing the bad points and the places where we are bad at is not at all going to improve something. I want to ask every one of you, what do you think that all of these people in this room interested in entrepreneurship and startups can do in order to foster entrepreneurship in Bulgaria, in order to create more for everyone? What every single of these people by themselves can do? Yeah, probably it's a strange question, but it's important, every one of us, to know what we can do in order to grow everything.
For sure, I mean, I will illustrate with example. For sure, it's to be extremely positive and to believe that everything is possible. Because, I mean, when we invested in Martin, who was 16-year-old, everybody thought that we are crazy. Now he's building a great company in Silicon Valley. One guy who is slightly older than him made something which most of the top experts, including the PhD guys in food industry in Bulgaria, thought that it's impossible. But he made a recipe and managed to stabilize this recipe while being at home and playing with something in the kitchen. So talent is everywhere.
This doesn't work.
So we should just believe and don't always try to compare and find really what's wrong, but really to celebrate the success that it's all around us. The more we help each other, the more successful we'll be. That's why I always say that, in a way, 11 is a community project. Because the more people are involving with founders and everybody else, the more they give, the more they will receive.
Yeah, he said it. People, help each other, believe, be positive. That's it.
And share.
Okay,
Share.
maybe just any more comments from our...
Yeah.
Max, you're the guy that's been really negative on...
That's how I'm training myself. See, there is nothing, this is my view, and this is probably very different from René's view. I constantly have to remind myself to kick myself in the ass to do more. And this is what I'm trying to do with all of you. So this is, if you don't agree with that, well,
too bad.
That's just my method. Generally, I fully agree. My recipe would be just in 2 words. Do a lot of giving before you take. Give a lot of upfront value. Be much more open and honest to yourself. It's in Bulgaria in general, and maybe in many other countries. So let's not talk about bad stuff in Bulgaria. But generally, there's this human trait to cut corners. To not be specific about stuff. Say things the way they are, and give value before you just want to take everything from others.
And
Peter,
also,
on the sound, it's a great ending question. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Nikki. And also, something which is, I think it's easy, and everybody here can do it because we are here and we are proactive people. Just inspire more people to be proactive, to think about when they saw a problem, to think about the solution and the opportunity, to change this perspective from negative to positive.
Stani?
I don't think that we were that negative, but just to summarize that everything we said was actually good. I've been working with this guy, who is very successful in Hollywood. He has his own visual effects studio. And when I asked him, why are you so successful in Hollywood, he said, okay, when I went to work in Los Angeles, they picked me up because I could deliver a task, single person, single-handedly. I could deliver it faster and smarter than 20 people they had in-house, because I always be thinking in a different way. And what I think that we Bulgarians are really good at, to do something from nothing. And everyone here in the stage and in the room, we do it every day. And we are so good at that, that if you just start thinking how we're going to use this skill in creating our business ventures, then yeah, we can beat them because they cannot do that.
Yeah, my take on the question, and I think it's a great question, is my experience in business is there's only one battle, and that's the battle with yourself. And we've got constant thoughts in our mind, and I 100% agree. The key is to stay positive, but also to stay real, because I've lost a lot of money being overly positive when I shouldn't be. But I would like to end it on that note. I think we spoke about a lot of things. Next year this will happen again, and I think we're going to make significant progress. But I think anyone up here is extremely positive on the long-term ecosystem that we're developing, as well as everyone here today. So again, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure.
Thank you.